Did you know that the first water communion happened in November of 1980? Almost 40 years ago, Carolyn McDade and Lucille Shuck Longview were asked to create a worship service for the Women and Religion Continental Convocation. They wanted to create a new ritual that spoke to our connectedness to one another, to the totality of life, and to our place on this planet. That November service, held in East Lansing, Michigan, was called Coming Home Like Rivers to the Sea. And it had water from seven different locations. There was local water from a stream near the retreat center, waters from Rio Grande River in Albuquerque, water gathered at a pond in upstate New York, and from the Assiniboine River in Winnipeg. Raindrops were collected from a downpour in Maryland, and another person brought water from the mouth of the Mississippi River in Mexico. Finally, someone brought salt waters from the Atlantic Ocean and another from the Pacific Ocean. Each woman who gathered and brought water was asked to reflect on how water was significant to her and what it symbolized in her life. These 7 waters were mixed together in a big earthen bowl. It was the central piece of their gathering. A homily was shared that expressed the strengths, insights, and understanding that women bring to our culture, an expression of compassion, an affirmation of life, joyfulness, and celebration, relationships of love, respect, and mutual concern. It called on each person to lift up the feminist perspectives within their communities, urged them to not fall back to the false assumptions of the patriarchal assumptions underlying many traditional faiths. Finally, they took with them water from that communion bowl, taking away with them the birthing waters for their empowerment, their questioning, their imagination. Waters that represented their creativity, energy, nurturing, and love. Each participant was invited to take some of the gathering waters back home, holding on to these symbols, reconnecting with them when needed, reconnecting to their sense of community and their sense of the sacred until they could meet again. It was a practice that allowed them to come home to the spirit of their soul, a time to listen deep within themselves, a time to listen deeply to others. It was an opportunity to combine the strengths and then take those strengths home with them when they parted. As we can see from our gathering today, the water communion has shifted greatly in the last 40 years. In fact, at the end of the book describing that first water communion ceremony, it says, "As waters change form and move in a life-giving cycle, so this water ceremony must move, be in process, change, be in motion. It needs always to be reflective of and integral to the time and the place of the people creating it. The ritual is no longer about communities of women coming together to celebrate and embody their power, but has become a symbol for communities to come back to, communities to gather together and remember the things that connect us. The water communion is symbolic of our shared faith coming from many different sources. And yet, over the years, we have also lost some of the meaning in our ceremonies. Sometimes we end up getting someone's travel log, talking about the many places that they have been. We end up sitting around listening to summer experiences and not sinking into the deeper meaning that was meant for this time. So often we can use these moments to lift up the way water has been a vacation, a time out of time, and not always about how water is necessary in our everyday life. Water communion is a ritual that reminds us that though we have parted for the summer months, though we have spent weekends away and hiding from the heat, we can come back to this community and be stronger together. We ritualize this image by being together, by pouring water into a communal bowl, bringing together our strengths and our weaknesses, knowing that we will join together with others to create an incredible community. And although we are a community who have not been able to gather in person now for 28 Sundays, we are still able to experience this. We are able to recognize that coming together in this weird way through screens does not mean that we are not in community. And so what I invite you to do today after our service is done is to take your water outside and pour it onto the ground. Pour it out on the earth today. Our waters will commingle together below the earth, and they will settle into the Okanagan Basin, helping to supply the water that gathers within our lakes and our tributaries. The basin that will collect our water, that we will use for baby dedications and renaming ceremonies, the water that will help us gather back together next year, will be the Okanagan Basin. Much like our first hymn this morning, let us remember that the earth is holding us, our blue boat home. This past Thursday, several of us gathered at Mission Creek. Amanda spoke with a few children about the salmon run, recognizing the circles of life and how salmon and the water systems are similar to our own life cycles. As we come to the beginning of autumn and we are looking toward another season of preparation, a season of gathering and preparing and renewing ourselves for the winters ahead, we can remember that we are all connected, we are all supported, and we are all sustained by the waters that we have shared here. Thank you so much for participating.